Regular City Commission meeting for the City of Largo. Today is Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask that if you have a cell phone, please turn it to silent or off so that we don't have any interruptions. We're going to start this evening's meeting with an invocation from Pastor Oliver King of Restoration Ministries of Largo. And then if you could please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, the creator of heaven and earth, we take this moment, God, to say thank you, God, for your many blessings each and every day that you provide to us. God, you've blessed our city, our community, our families, our government. Thank you, Lord, for the protection that you've provided to us and many families that live in this city. In this commission's meeting, we ask now for instructions and understanding in this meeting. Tonight, help us to hear, to understand, and to learn from one another. We ask, God, for your continued blessings over our government, our schools, our officials, our families, and everyone that make up this great city of Largo. We offer our continued prayer for the homeless and those who are in need of help and assistance. We ask for your continued blessing and ask for healing for the many families that are impacted by illness and by financial strain. Lastly, God, we ask that you continue to bless our country, our president, our leaders around this country. We will forever thank you, God, and give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor King. The first item on the agenda tonight is approval, actually is citizens' comment, so we'll move straight to that. If you'd like to speak about something that is on the agenda outside of the consent docket, please wait until the item comes up. Do we have any cards this evening?
Yes, I have 3 cards tonight. First is Jim Riggs at the podium.
My first trip.
Oh.
And according to this building, probably my last trip here. Nice building.
Thank you.
Before you guys panic, because I have a clipboard, I once joked that I had an IQ of 130, which I did, but I said once. I'm over 75 and I have some cognitive decline. So sometimes there's a word or phrase that just escapes me. So this is for your benefit, so I don't get bogged down trying to find that word. What you know can hurt you. And so my story might harm you. As a retired member of the military, I once thought I would be eligible for care at a VA hospital, but I'm not. Funny. Since after retirement from our military, I retired from Bay Pines VA, serving as a cognitive therapist for combat veterans with PTSD. Like I say, what you don't know can hurt you. With my wife, I bought a house here in Largo 30 years ago. The only house I've ever been able to buy. Remember, I was a enlisted guy, and with moving, and we didn't make a lot of money, this was the first time I ever had the opportunity to own a home. Of course, those of you who think Moby Dick was about a whale, you must mistakenly think I'm here about a fence. Whales and fences are just symbols, vehicles. Writers used to identify other topics. It said, you can't fight City Hall. I say you shouldn't have to. But when they aren't receptive, and I'm going to show you why I say that, you have no other option, or just whine and let them do whatever they want. I'm retired military, and this is my only home. After 30 years here, I've never had a need to defend that home. Let me briefly tell you my story, and one day it might be yours. Just a few months ago, a man named Lyle Davidson moved next to me with his wife and stepson from Nebraska. I don't know how things work there, but he assumed that he had the right to intimidate me. He frightened my wife, but I'm too old to be afraid of anyone. Now my wife and I are over 70. That just angered him. I sent this letter to Largo, and to date I have received no reply. Here's the letter that I sent. My name is Jim Riggs, and I have lived in Largo at the same address for 30 years. A little over a week ago, I was blowing the leaves off the path I had constructed to my backyard. Out of nowhere, my neighbor confronted me, and I quote, "Are you just being an asshole or trying to piss me off?" I had no idea what he was talking about. But he continued and said my leaf blower had blown onto his side of the area between our 2 homes. He is new, having only lived here maybe 2 months. I could tell he was angry, and I told him I didn't have time for that. Later that same day, he told my wife to tell the man who cares for our lawn he can no longer use a leaf blower to blow leaves off our path. She meant she's afraid, but I'm too old to be afraid. What the hell? I don't know how much more time I got anyhow. So 2 days later, he and his stepson were standing on my path, banging nails and laughing that they had taken down the old fence that runs parallel to mine in the backyard. I told them to get off my property, and they thought that was funny, and we laughed until I called Largo City Police. The fence is obviously on my property. For 10 years, there's been a fence parallel to mine with 2 foot in between. Nice place for the critters to run back and forth, you know what I mean? So I called code enforcement, and Officer Wallace responded the next day. He came and spent approximately an hour. I didn't follow him, but he informed me that the neighbor had built the fence without a permit, but since it was done, he wasn't going to have him pull a permit. I asked why not, and he told me although the fence without a permit was in violation of code, he had the discretion to enforce or not enforce codes.
Mr. Riggs, you're going to have to follow up next time. Just 3 minutes are up. But,
Oh, I'm sorry?
No, that's okay. I appreciate it. And certainly if we'll follow up with you. I
Well,
appreciate you being here.
I tried to follow up with this community manager. He's refused to answer anything. He won't even respond to my telephone calls or my text messages. So I was just going to ask if any of you agree that code enforcement doesn't have to enforce codes.
It shouldn't be the case, but thank you. We'll be in touch.
Sorry, nobody told me about the 3 minutes.
Okay.
That's my bad, I'm sorry. Next speaker is Michael Peltier.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City of Largo staff, and general public. My name is Mike Peltier. I live at 10333 127th Place. I stand here to request a clarification to an ordinance COO 1178 regarding boat and trailer setbacks. I've become very familiar with this code and am involved with a not-so-current case number CE 2023-01283. I've been informed by the staff here that there's an ordinance under review. The quote from the email, "There's a strong likelihood that the parking ordinance will change and allow for one boat, one trailer, one recreational vehicle to be parked in the driveway or in the front yard. I'm ready to know this now, as if this passes, all these things that I'm fighting for in my neighborhood will be allowable." That's in writing from a staff member. So my question really becomes, the reason I'm here is first of all, is that true? That the commissioners are entertaining an ordinance that would remove all the vehicles in the front of the property, cluttering up in the right-of-way, on the property line, in the setbacks? Because that's what I'm fighting now, and have been fighting for 2 years at a particular address. So that was my question. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and we'll be in touch. There is, that is, something along those lines being considered, but it hasn't passed at this point.
Is there some workshop that I might attend so I can see this?
I'll make sure that you get invited to that.
Thank you very much.
The clerk has your information?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next speaker is Matthew Faustini.
Good evening, Commissioners. Matt Faustini, Largo. I just wanted to come up here and actually share and thank city staff for such a great event yesterday. We really had an amazing event, Housing for All event here at City Hall last night. And the panel discussions were really something special. In our group, at least in my group, everyone was very open. They were vulnerable, but they were also strong and resilient. All those best qualities that we see in our citizens and our neighbors. So I was just really proud of the event. Heard some gut-wrenching stories as well. And it was also pretty clear how universal the problem was. You know, in our group, every age, every race, every gender, we all were struggling with the same situations and same issues around affordability. So I was so proud to see the turnout. I want to thank the city communication and city staff for getting the turnout that we got. And also, I wanted to urge anyone who wasn't able to attend, you can go to the City of Largo's website and go to the Housing for All section, and there is a survey there that we did at the workshop. So just wanted to share that and thank city staff for such a great event yesterday.
Thank you.
Next
Great.
speaker is Craig Murtha.
Hello, Craig Murtha, 145 Velma Drive, Largo. I don't have any notes tonight at all because I rushed in here, so I'll just ramble on a little bit. Thinking about what's going on in Phoenix right now, those record temperatures, not only the record temperatures during the day, but the record temperatures at night. That's a scary thing. I was reading an article some time ago about how our nighttime temperatures are not dropping nearly as far down as they used to because there's so much concrete and asphalt, and we're losing trees. There was recently a study in Tampa where they've lost, their canopy has shrunk. I forget what it shrunk to, but the mayor was very alarmed. So she's committed to planting 30,000 trees by 2030. And I like some of the things in that article where they talk about an all-of-government approach, you know, getting everybody involved, all the different departments, so everybody's got a mandate to plant trees, you know, stormwater, anyway, it was a really good article. And I know we do a lot of good stuff here as far as planting trees, you know, tree giveaways and just a lot of stuff that I don't even know about, which is kind of a little bit alarming too, because I'd be the kind of person who would really know about all these programs, but I really don't know about all of them. But I know there's some stuff I hear of here or there, but I know there's a lot of people who don't know about them. So just, you know, I was going to come here and say we need to redouble our efforts, you know, to plant more trees rapidly so we don't end up like Phoenix, but I think it's more than a redoubling. I think it's like a tenfold effort, because everywhere you look, there's space for trees. I mean, everywhere I go. And you know, I was going to come here and say we should be planting all native trees, and I think native trees are best. I mean, think of all the big native trees that give us so much canopy, like live oaks or a multitude of sable palms or the winged elms that you're planting, or in the wetter areas, the maples, the cypress, pines. I would love to see more of all those trees, especially when you do that new park over there, Pinecrest. Lake Villa Park could use tons. Even that little tiny park on West Bay that's all brick right now, and one bench and one, I think it's one non-native palm tree. All that brick could come out. You could plant 5 big live oak or live oaks there that would grow and eventually bend out and become a good source of shade in downtown. There's just so many. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface, but we could probably plant tens of thousands of trees in this town, and I think it's something we should really prioritize. You know, and it alarms me. You know, I think tonight on the consent agenda, we're going to talk about spending another $57,000, or spending the last $57,000 on those lights at the plaza, and I think, wow, $57,000. How far could that go if we were planting trees, especially if we started out with small trees, because small trees actually establish more quickly. I mean, you can establish a small tree like that, like they give away at or they sell at the Green Thumb Festival in 3 months. I'm talking about a live oak. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the cards.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda.
Move approval. I'd like to pull agenda item 5.
I have a second.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of July 11th, 2023.
Mayor, I have a question on the minutes. On page 9 of the agenda packet, page 7 of the minutes, the vote regarding the domestic animals, excluding dogs, at McGow Park. It says that Commissioner Smith voted, no, Commissioner Johnson voted nay, and I believe it might have been Commissioner Robinson.
It was.
So can we correct that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is a short answer. And I'm sure does that require a motion to correct?
No, you can just correct the minutes by, just approve the minutes as corrected.
Sounds good. All in
Move
favor?
approval as corrected.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Could I hear the consent docket, please?
Item 3, authorization for wastewater debt planning and professional services with the City Attorney's Office, BMO, in the estimated amount of $57,000 to include bond counsel fees, legal counsel fees, and actual expenses. Item 4, authorization to purchase a storage server and VMware server virtualization software and licensing from CDW Incorporated in the estimated amount of $192,000.
Thank you. For the consent docket, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent document without commission discussions and including staff background provided in the commission packets.
Second.
I could actually do this by heart.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item number 5, Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you. I'll just give Jerry a second.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Hey, so thank you, Jerry, for coming up and talking to me about this for a second. So just reading through the budget, not the budget, the agenda item, we approved this original plan back in August 6th of 2019, so we're 4 years,
Yes,
right? And on at that time was a $500,000 project. So several of us up here have talked about this project many, many times over the last 4 years, and I'm happy to see that we're finally getting to a place where we can get this completed. So first question is, once this is approved, how long are we is it going to be to where this project is completed? The lights are working like we originally wanted them to, and we're in good shape out there.
So in conversations with the proposed takeover contractor, their intent is the first 60 days is procure all their materials, so you won't see activity on site while that procurement of materials and electrical items are being made. And then the ideal scenario, again, short of weather, short of other delays, would be within about 90 to 100 days after that procurement period that the site's going to be working electrically and will pass a permit inspection.
Yeah, that'd be nice. What's the scope of this project for this finished product?
The scope of this project, the 100% one goal is permit compliance. And basically, we could never, the previous contractor could never close out the permit because of all the deficiencies. They failed to come back despite promises to correct them. So this project is solely meant to correct permit deficiencies, and part of that is also UL lighting compliance. The lighting that went in was not UL compliant. The lighting that is going to replace it in kind will be.
I didn't even know you could purchase lighting that wasn't UL listed. So the plan is to be able to have those lights change color instead of be steady color all the time. Am I correct?
Each individual, the intent of the project all along was each panel can be one color or change to another. Each individual panel, if you want, panel X blue and you want panel X red, you can do that.
Perfect.
If you want them all blue, you can have them all blue. So that functionality will be restored, and that getting a closeout on the permit will allow both RPA and Public Works facilities to be able to function better and maintain the project as it was intended to be.
All right, last question, and then I just have a real quick comment. So looking at the original bids for the takeover, there was Synergy and East West Electric. Those bids are about $60,000 of difference. That's a big number. I mean, and obviously, you know, that's been updated since, you know, Synergy had a chance to understand what the issues were out there, but I would imagine that East-West would have went up about that amount too. So my question is, and generally when I see such a large gap in those bids, is, you can't speak for those companies, but do you have any understanding of why their bids were so far apart?
In some cases, and I can't speak for all cases, in some cases, if a contractor has plenty of work, they'll put in a very high number, and if for some reason they get selected, it's a very fruitful contract for them.
All right.
And, and Synergy has a good track record with the city, so we rely on them. Norm's had endless conversations with them, and every conversation we have, it just reinforces that they're ready to make this project work.
Yeah, we're ready for the project to work too. So I think my last comment is you know, this project, some of the delays we've seen along West Bay for multiple reasons. I just want to make sure that whether it's smaller projects like this or, you know, larger projects like Horizon, that we are doing all of our due diligence to make sure that these projects are completed on time and at least at budget. Because, you know, 4 years for a project that we all are well aware of should have taken, you know, 6-8 months is out of control, right? So I just want to make sure that you guys and the rest of the folks that are working on these types of projects have taken some lessons from this and you know, using it as a learned experience, and we don't have to see these types of things happen in the future. I mean, you know, there are always going to be times where things happen, and I understand that, but again, there's several projects downtown that we've seen these types of issues happen with, and I don't want to see them happen again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. Thanks, Jerry. We may be late in the game on this, but I'm wondering if the commission would consider perhaps not awarding this contract and removing those lights altogether. I know we've tried for 4 years to do this. We had to tunnel under Missouri Avenue in order to, Seminole Boulevard, in order to get electric out there properly, and it's been a fight, but frankly, the aesthetics of those things are not overwhelmingly beautiful.
But they've never worked right.
Well,
so
even
maybe
if they work right,
right.
you know, and I've seen them lit up at night, and it's kind of pretty, but $56,000 that we could put somewhere else. And I know that we're trying to do placemaking there for downtown. I would rather see some of that money used to make the giant word Largo more visible during the day, and just remove those altogether. I have no idea if anybody's going to agree with this, but I just want to put it out there if there's been any consideration of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Hey, Jerry. Most of my questions were asked by Commissioner Robinson, but I did have one. What, other than the clawback of the money that they didn't get, what else are we doing against Brightview? Are we informing other cities that do contracts with them?
No, our procurement policy doesn't have that built into it. If they ever had called or needed to use us for a reference, we would not give them a positive reference.
Okay, so if a city called, you're saying if a city called, we flat out said don't do anything with them, correct? Okay. The other kind of thing, when you said we've done the new Synergy, we very good responsive. What bids or projects have they done for Largo?
If I understand it correctly, Commissioner, Synergy's been working with RPA on a whole host of electrical needs within their park system, and that's why we've had positive feedback on the work, the quality of work they do, and the timeliness of the work they do.
Okay. And to clarify those at home, like you said, this is CRA money that's already there. Other than the $5,000,
this is already built into the project that was originally there. So I had a couple questions from people thinking we were spending another $50,000 on top of what's there, and I had to inform them that's not true. So, thank you.
Thank you. I certainly agree with the statements from Commissioner Robinson. I had a question about functionality. I know you mentioned that, will the lights turn off during the day, is my question.
Yes, that is the...
They should.
Yes, that was the intended goal.
I guess my other question, I just thought of, does the solar panel out there that's above that artwork actually function? And if not, I mean, is that providing some energy to the lights? Is that the reason it's on during the day, so that the solar, tell me how that works.
It's not meant to provide 100% of the electric load for the project, but part of this process will be to make sure that the solar is working if it already is not working. So with 100% electrical overhaul, to go through the inspection, everything's going to be verified by our building division.
Okay, so I'm curious, since we have an understanding that the light shouldn't be on during the day.
Correct.
And the sun is out during the day.
Correct.
Is there a battery, or is it just feeding electric? You may not have the answer to this now, but
I believe there is battery.
I believe so.
I
there's a
believe
battery
there is
that's
battery,
charged.
yeah.
Okay, because they're very low energy LED
Yep.
lights, and they should.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
I move to approve authorization to award the takeover contract for the Downtown Plaza Enhancement Project to Synergy Electric and Lighting in the amount of $56,856 with an owner's contingency of $5,000.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 5-1. Thank you.
Mayor, if I will, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Norm Shaw. Norm's been with the city for about a year, and he is currently the interim infrastructure construction manager.
Nice.
Nice to meet everyone. Could have used it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Well,
thank
should
you.
have grilled you.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you.
Where's your hard hat?
Next is resolution number 2361.
Good evening. The Community Development Department is requesting City Commission adoption of the 2023-2024 Community Development Block Grant CDBG Action Plan. The city adopted its 2020 through 2024 Consolidated Plan in July of 2020 that outlines the 5-year goals to addressing housing, neighborhood improvements, and supportive services needs of the community. The 2023-2024 Action Plan details the anticipated resources that will be used in the 4th year of the Consolidated Plan. The Consolidated Plan and Action Plan are requirements of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in order to receive the annual CDBG entitlement funding. The Community Development Advisory Board recommended approval of preliminary funding for public services, public facilities, capital improvements, and the down payment assistance program administration at its March 27th and May 27th meetings. The draft plan was also presented to the City Commission at its June 13th work session. There was a required 30-day public comment period from June 1st through June 30th to accept comments on the proposed action plan, and no comments was received at that time. Upon the adoption, the 2023-2024 action plan will be submitted to HUD concurrently with Pinellas County's action plan by the deadline of August 16th, 2023.
Resolution number 2361, a resolution of the City of Largo, Florida, approving the City of Largo Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, fiscal year 2023 through 2024 annual action plan, authorizing the submittal of Largo's annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, endorsing the Pinellas County, Florida fiscal year 2023 through 2024 annual action plan, authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept a HUD grant to fund the fiscal year 2023 through 24 annual action plan upon approval by HUD, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
We have no cards.
Any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith.
Howdy. It's on page 74. It's the list of projects. The kind of question, and I couldn't, maybe I missed it or I couldn't find. On number 28 is the Homeless Leadership Alliance Coordinated Entry. What is that?
I would defer to my manager, Arrow.
My partner caught it last night, unfortunately.
What page is that, Commissioner?
74.
74.
So that's actually one of the contracts that Shira doesn't manage, so I'll help with that one. So the coordinated entry system runs through the Homeless Leadership Alliance. They do have a position that really helps look at the prioritized residents that are in the homeless system as far as their vulnerability scales and so forth, and helps coordinate and enter them into the different programs like rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing when those positions come open. So we pay just a portion of the funding of that position, along with other funding sources from other agencies and government entities in the county. And then another component to that contract is there's a small portion for publication of really handy little resource guides. They're about this big. We get several of them published. We get a bunch that we get to hand out at the library with our street outreach, community standards and so forth. So we help pay for some of the printing of those. And then we also put a portion toward supplies for cold night shelters. We don't have any in Largo, but they are accessible for our residents experiencing homelessness during a cold weather event. So we contribute towards some of those supplies.
Okay, no, I can really find. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just add that I'd like to show my appreciation to the CDAB for the time that I know they spend a lot of time reviewing this and before it comes to us. So appreciate their efforts in looking into the whole plan very thoroughly. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2361.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next is approval of the expenditure of an additional $250,000 for the 2023 budget.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. The Solid Waste Division of the Public Works Department is seeking approval to spend an additional $250,000 of the FY 2023 budget for recycling programs costs associated with waste management recycling services. Staff will continue to monitor the solid waste budget, and we believe there's enough funding to handle this expenditure. The division and OPB do understand there is a need for a more long-range discussion of the volatility of the recycling program and its expenditures, and we will be setting a work session late in the fall with the commissioners to discuss this. The staff is available now for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any cards?
We have no cards.
Any questions?
I move to approve the expenditure of an additional $250,000 over the remaining portion of the FY 2023 budget year for recycling program costs with Waste Management Services, Inc.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Hey, Woody, I got one question on the thing.
Mr. Holmes.
If this $250,000 is for the remaining fiscal year, this is only for 2 months?
No, sir. We are at this time, we have expenditures there that are awaiting this funding. As you're well aware, we've had a turnover in the Public Works Department and some of these things, and we're finding out and trying to catch up on, and this the volatility of this recycling cost and throughout this year has just been it's kind of like throwing darts at a board full of numbers sometimes, but this money is slated to be used for some expenditures we have now for this month, and then the rest of the budget year.
Well, I'm only questioning what the motion is, because it says on the motion, the portion of the fiscal year 2023 budget year, which that runs out at the end of September.
Yes, sir.
Which is only 2 months away. I mean, is that the correct wording here?
This is just the authorization for the remainder of this fiscal year, I believe.
For 250,000 now?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So the 250 is for 2 months, August and September. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
So, Could you tell me again the date of the work session when we're going to kind of delve into the cost and cycles of recycling?
I don't think we've set an exact date, but our plan is to bring something to the commission this fall.
This fall, okay. Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item number 8.
Acting Assistant City Manager Simonis is going to join me for this one, and we have a slideshow to walk through for this item. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I'm going to make sure the presentation gets displayed. All right. So good evening. This item is the approval of the proposed property tax rate to be levied, as well as the time, date, and place for the first public hearing. So tonight's vote simply authorizes a maximum millage rate that will be advertised on trim notices sent to residents. Tonight's vote only requires a simple majority vote of the commission. On this slide here, we have our process throughout the remainder of the year here. So tonight establishes that maximum property tax rate. At 2 hearings in September, on September 5th and September 8th, September 18th is when the City Commission will vote to adopt a property tax rate for the next year. At those meetings, the City Commission can adopt a rate that is equal to or lower than the rate decided on tonight, but no higher. We also have an August work session where we will dive deeper into the proposed budget again and look at any additional changes from the proposed budget, and that will lead us into those September hearings. So based on the information available at the time, the city manager's proposed budget released on July 1st recommended a reduced property tax rate of 5.4900 mils. Because of the increase in property values that we saw citywide, the proposed rate would generate an additional 11% in budgeted general fund property tax revenue. And that will allow us to continue investments in strategic initiatives outlined in our strategic plan and build on progress from prior years, as well as continue to try and rebuild that fund balance towards our target. At tonight's meeting, the city manager has recommended setting the maximum millage rate to advertise on trim notices as the 5.5200, which is the current millage rate for the current year. At the August work session, the City Commission will review additional cost updates and items for consideration that weren't available at the time of developing the proposed budget. So approving a rate of 5.5200 mils tonight will provide the City Commission with some flexibility for that discussion as to how to pay for those items in those future budget meetings. So on this slide, we have the proposed rate, bold in the middle, that 5.4900 that was on the city manager's proposed budget, as well as the impacts on the 5-year fund projection and the impact on fund balance. As you can see, the proposed rate and the current rate both keep us around that 15% mark for the coming budget year, as well as grow the fund balance out towards our 20% target. As we can see, without any adjustments made to the expenditure side, even higher millage rates grow beyond that 20% target, and lower millage rates either hold the fund balance approximately flat or that fund balance gets drawn down over time. So we also wanted to provide some additional information based on the conversation at the work session with the City Commission and the Finance Advisory Board. So we have some millage rate history for the City of Largo, along with our fund balance history corresponding to that. So as you can see, we have reduced the millage rate over the last 4 years since approximately 2019, but due to rising property values, that has still allowed us to generate additional property tax revenue for investments in the general fund. We also wanted to provide a little more background that was requested on our fund balance trends, and particularly the impact that we saw during COVID-19 economic disruption. So peak years being 2020, fiscal years 2020 and 2021. We saw our fund balance decline from, we had surpassed our target and ended 2019 actually a little above 25%. And we saw that fund balance get drawn down over 2 years, roughly 9.5% or a little over $4 million during that time. But using that fund balance during that time really allowed us to continue to make investments, continue to move forward with initiatives that we had started, and maintain progress during that time without any serious disruptions to staffing or service levels as much as we could manage. So this is just another visual that outlines that combined COVID impact on the dollar amount of fund balance that we use to weather that financial disruption. So in addition to our fund balance and millage rate history, we also wanted to provide some comparable millage rates in the area, as well as what those neighboring communities have in their proposed budget. So we can see a few other communities, St. Petersburg and Clearwater, both have proposed a millage rate decrease while still seeing that property value increase. One other community is showing a slight millage rate increase and another keeping their rate the same. Do want to note these are all tentative. These are just what were in proposed budgets and not necessarily what is adopted or moving forward in any of those communities. After budget hearings in September is when we'll find out what everyone's final adopted millage rate is. So attached to the commission memo, we also included information about what the impact of these various property tax rates would be on homeowners in the city of Largo. So in addition to what we have historically provided, we also added at request an additional property that was sold more recently. So we have both a property sale from 2008, so a homeowner who's got a homesteaded property and has lived here for some time, as well as someone who bought a house more recently in the area and what that property tax bill looks like, as well as that change for them. So as you can see here, a single family home sold in 2008 with an assessed value of $159,000 and a taxable value of $109,000. The change in property taxes at that proposed millage rate of 5.4900 would be about $23 greater than last year. On the property sold in 2021 with a higher assessed and taxable value, we see that difference from their prior year taxes around $36 change year over year. And then we also have two non-homesteaded properties. So we have a smaller West Bay Drive commercial property, and you can see that millage rate in their annual taxes, the difference from the prior year being about $103 change. And then a much larger commercial property on East Bay Drive would see about a $2,685 change from the prior year. Again, all at the proposed 5.4900 millage rate that was in the proposed budget. So lastly, we just wanted to revisit, in addition to millage rates, the chart that we shared at the work session, but to put it all in context of what the impact on a resident's monthly bill might look like, both with the proposed utility rate increases in the budget, as well as the proposed property tax rate, again at that 5.4900. Just note in here we do have that solid waste rate as one of the monthly bills. There is no proposed rate change there, but this does include those proposed changes in both the wastewater and stormwater rates, as well as the property tax bill. And we can see the cumulative impact of those changes would be about $106 per year or $8.90 per month. Lastly, as we have done in prior years, wanted to get resident feedback on this as well. So in partnership with the communications and engagement team, we have launched a tax rate survey that is open through August 28th, and we'll share the results from this survey at the first City Commission meeting in September. Residents can weigh in on the proposed property tax rate and what they're comfortable supporting, and we'll share those results as we look at the property tax rate to be adopted in September. So with that, staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
I have one card, Matthew Faustini.
Good evening again. Matt Faustini, 1015 Lake Palms Drive, Largo. I'm actually speaking in support of adopting the trim notice rate at least the current millage, or preferably at the 5.67, to give this commission the maximum flexibility in tools it has. This is a notice, it is not a rate, as city staff has pointed out. And we've heard, about the word rollback and seen rollback in the presentation and heard the technical description. But I want to talk about where the concept started. It came a thing in the 1990s, and its goal is to try to make you believe that your elected officials are raising your taxes even though they're keeping the rate exactly the same. So for instance, this commission could keep the same exact millage rate at 5.52, and the state would consider that, using Florida math, a 10% tax increase. It conveniently doesn't do that for its sales tax revenue. I just meant to, add that. It is important to remember we are in another housing boom. We know we've lived through one of these before. It will end. It will come. And those of us who lived through those 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012 budgets remember the scars and the hurt and the damage and the cuts to services we had to do to deal with the loss of property values during that time. So I urge this commission to keep every tool at its ability. Also, it's important to know that we have the third highest inflation rate in the nation right now, double the national average, mainly because of housing. Adopting a rollback rate would be an inflationary thing this commission would be doing, because it would be benefiting those newest homeowners who tend to be very wealthy, who have just recently moved due to COVID, and would be giving them the biggest benefit of a lower tax rate, and thus drive inflation even higher. So I urge this commission to at least stay at the current or go to the 5, 6, 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I had a question about, there was two charts early on. One had 5.52 with a total property tax revenue of 40.03 something. The other one had a different number, 39.3 something.
Yes.
Was one of them more recent?
One of them is our total property tax revenue. The other one is our budgeted general fund property tax revenue. So the second chart is the one that we should look at as far as budget planning purposes. That's what we'll see in the budget projections in the long-range financial plan.
So that just removes the CRA?
That removes the CRA, and we budget 96.5% of our property tax revenue.
Okay.
I move to approve the proposed property tax rate for fiscal year 2024 at the rate of 5.52 mils, and schedule a first public hearing for property tax rate and budget adoption on September 5th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. If you have a question?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Can you pull the board, please?
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes?
Yes.
Commissioner Gerard?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson?
Yes?
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Next up is item number 9.
Good evening. This ordinance is to speak with the commission regarding the wastewater rate proposed increase for fiscal year 2024. So section 2384 of our city ordinances addresses our wastewater rates, and the proposed amount, as we just saw, was a 12% increase. And this would be on the fixed and the variable charges. So the approximate revenue generated by this 12% increase in 2024 is about a $2.7 million increase, and that's needed to cover the additional CIP expenses. We spoke about the additional debt that we need to take out for lift station projects, as well as the infiltration and inflow, and then as well as the operating expenses increase in 2024. So this is the same slide from the debt presentation, just as a reminder of what we currently have outstanding. The 2024 debt service without the new additional debt that we brought on July 11th is just over $8 million, with estimates for the additional $9.4 million is about $8.7 million annually. So that's our debt service starting in 2024. So currently in our Florida SRF, the State Revolving Loan Fund, which is where we have both of those loans, there's language that speaks about the debt covenants. Both of them address that we are required to maintain a 1.15% amount over the debt service. So if we take a look at our operating revenues, our pledged revenues, excuse me, in the wastewater fund, being we've pledged our operating revenues, our charges for services, minus those expenses to operate the sewer fund, that's what we need to have at least 1.15 times our debt service payments left over. So in 2024, the amount that would be required to meet this debt covenant is just over $10 million. It's $10,074,000 approximately. Using our current budgeted amounts, we would have roughly an amount of $11,504,000 left over, if that makes sense. So that leaves about $1.4 million for potential additional operating expenses. And that's where we looked at that 10% increase versus a 12% increase. Each percent adds about a $250,000 revenue to the fund, so we weren't comfortable going less than $1 million above that debt covenant. So a little bit of our history on our wastewater rates. The last rate increase that we approved was in 2020, and it was the 3-year 10%. So in the 2023, one I'm bringing today that would be in effect 2024 is a 12% increase, meaning the flat amount on a residential customer would be a $3 increase per month, and the per 1,000 gallons use is going from $3.06 to $3.43. So this would show you what is the cost for a single family at 4,000 gallons used per month compared to the prior year's ordinances. So as you saw in the previous presentation, it's about a $4.85 increase, and that's at 5,000 gallons used. Oops. So this is just another view of the different percentage increases that we've done since 2001. So there's a included comparison table of what we know for fiscal year 2023 rates in some of the surrounding communities, as well as proposed or adopted 2024 and 2025 rates. The ones that do not have information in there, we did not have proposed information on. So with our additional 12% increase, that would bring us to $41.75 at that residential use at 4,000 gallons a month, which is still the second lowest in 2024 of the known surrounding communities. This is an excerpt from the proposed 2024 budget, just again as a reminder of where we have come and where the fund balance is. With the planned expenditures, we are still looking at expenditures being higher than revenues with that 12% increase. So our projections in future years is 5% at this point. Okay, again, this is just the same excerpt from the 2024 budget showing in numerical form where our revenues and expenditures are and where that fund balance is sitting at year end. So our next steps, we've sent out utility bill notices. We're required to send those out with most of our customers have the Pinellas County utilities billing them, so those have gone out. On our city website under largo.com, there's information in the financial center under utilities for the specifics of how that might affect you and all the different rates, as well as social media. And our second public hearing is to be scheduled in August. So staff is available for any questions.
Ordinance number 2023-49, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the City of Largo Code of Ordinances, Chapter 23, Article 2, Division 3, by amending Section 23-84 to revise certain wastewater rates, providing for the effective date of the new rates, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any cards on this?
Matthew Faustini?
You should sit closer.
The good thing is I'm speaking in support of everything today. That's a first for me. I'm speaking in favor of the rate increase. Matt Faustini, 1015 Lake Palms Drive. I do wish, I've emailed the commissioners, I wish it was done in a more progressive way, following what Pinellas County Water is doing with their tiered approach and helping reduce that upfront increase. But overall, these increases are needed. And I wanted to say the city should be extremely proud of the gains and improvements we've made in our wastewater system. We are far, far, far away from the days of the 2006 consent decree battles. And that took 17 years of elected members of this commission, 3 city managers, soon to be 4, who have led this city consistently through getting these changes needed to get us to where we are today. Doesn't mean we're done, unfortunately. Still have work to do. And there's nothing more important than making sure our waterways are as clean as possible, because our economy depends on it. Our tourism depends on it. We know these hard infrastructure projects and improvements to build in a dense place like Pinellas will never be cheap. They're never going to be cheap, but we've seen time and time again that the payback on those investments over their lifespan in economic growth and activity outweigh any cost upfront associated with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Holmes.
Hi, Rebecca. Question on the rate increases, is that compounded? Case in point, and I'm just going to, I was doodling with the figures on this thing. If you go 2020, 21, and 22, let's say the cost in 2020 was $1, and we're going to put a 10% increase on that. Well, that comes out at $1.10 then, and you're going to do another 10% the next year, it's going to come out at $1.21. And you're going to do another 10% after that, that's going to come out at $1.46. And then if we put the 12% on there, that comes out at $1.76. So actually, this is, I'm not going to beat you up on this thing because I'm just a scribbler on this stuff. It's the same thing when they said the penny for Pinellas is only 1%. No, it's not. It's 16%. But anyway, that's the percentage of a penny of a dollar. But anyway, is this something that are we going to tell the consumers of this that this is not really a 10%. This is 10% compounded, because that's where you start getting into some big money on this. Because we've heard from some people already. And they just said they can't afford this. The city can't afford not to do it, but they're just saying that they can't afford these rate changes. And it's just, you could almost say this is going to be a truth in millage, because that's really what it is. It's going to come out at $1, almost doubling.
Well, the 10% ones were 2020, 2021, and 2022, so it was 10% of a larger number each year.
Right.
So the 12% increase is based off of the 2022 or fiscal year 2023 rates.
Yeah. I'm just saying this is all compounded. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Matt, I did get your email, and I did forward it to the city manager and assistant city manager to examine. I would be interested if we could look down the road at the tier approach that the county's going at, just for an idea of what they're doing, and maybe it will be beneficial to us. It'd be nice to look at, or good to look at. Just more of a comment. I was a no in 2020, more because I didn't like the 3 approaches at one time. I don't think we should have tied. I'm a believer that it should individually each one come up, so that's why I was against that one. I have no problem supporting this one at this time. I think this is something, what Commissioner Holmes kind of said, it's kind of needed. So thank you, and thank you for my comments at the last meeting about the debt. Like I said, I'm a little, debt always scares me, so everybody does. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the comparison to the other municipalities in the county that were included in this. I think that's very important. And I did have a question. I know I think we've talked about tiered and wastewater in the past. Have we considered tiering the systems to kind of benefit or to encourage the reduction in water use in homes and businesses?
So we did get that email that was sent as well, and I think that's something we are definitely going to consider in future rate increases and look at the cost benefit of doing that. The possibility, I think at this point, with our timing and what needs to happen and be in place by October 1st, we wouldn't have time to research that.
Okay, yeah, I think it's certainly worth some, and I know we've done it with some other things that, there's some other things we've put a tiered system in that
So we did look at the possibility of doing a tiered system in the stormwater. We did not pursue it because we didn't have enough diversity in our properties. But again, this would be a different item entirely because it's based off of usage too. So it's definitely something we're going to add on to the research list in future discussions.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-49 on first reading and schedule second reading and public hearing on August 15th, 2023.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Next is ordinance number 2023-50.
Okay, so 2023-50 is the ordinance requesting the increase in the corresponding stormwater fees based on a 20% increase. This would be an additional $2.14 per month for a single-family residential customer. And this increase would generate approximately $1.59 million in additional annual revenue for the fund. We would be taking the charge per ERU from $10.70 to $12.84. This is a 20% increase. So this is based off of the stormwater management report that we had presented the commission with in 2022, and Chris is going to go over that report.
Thank you. So this report, it's a collaborative effort that happened in fiscal year 2022. Was contributed to by engineering services, public works, OPB, and finance to determine and identify long-term resource needs across the stormwater program. And I know we were just talking about tiers and fees. Unfortunately, this is bad verbiage. Tiers here are functional tiers as far as operational needs, functions. So staff categorized different future needs according to their scale. So tier 1 being the smallest, operations and maintenance, what we do in public works, such as maintaining our ponds, our ditches, our pipes, small in-house jobs that we're able to do within our own capacity. Moving up, tier 2 and also tier 3 are managed by the engineering services department. So tier 2 being large enough that it's a little too, it's beyond the scope of public works. And then tier 3 being CIP level. So the larger it is, the larger the tier is. And so, thank you. Really just wanted to go over all 3 tiers with you real quick because it would give you an idea of the justification behind what we identified and also where we intend for the revenue to go. So starting with tier 1, it has already been applied for getting the Vector trucks. So the picture on the upper left has already been procured in the last fiscal year. Fiscal year 24 is the lower left picture of the slope mower, surface operations, things that we do within public works. It's enabling us to expand our level of service to get where we need to be as far as the services that we provide for flood risk reduction and protecting the environment and cleaning up our natural spaces. Thank you. And then tier 2 and tier 3 kind of combined because it's housed in the same department, but we looked at a 20-year life cycle of what is happening with our underground stormwater infrastructure, and we found that analyzing all of our assets across the stormwater program, our expected life for pipes, we have aging pipe infrastructure, and so we have a shortfall in what we have been doing in the past, and we need to catch up to replace our aging infrastructure to get old pipes either lined, replaced, repaired, and it's something that the additional expenditure is going to be on top of what you're seeing right here. So as of 2022, these were the expenditures for smaller projects, $407,000 a year on average across the 21 to 25 CIP that we analyzed for that report, and then also tier 3 it would be an average of $3.7 million per year. And looking at our pipe infrastructure across the city, we had identified, I'll just put it simply, a lot of pipes, and a lot of pipes that are old and past their expected life. And so what you're looking at is a bar graph for year to year, starting in fiscal year 26, to address the aging infrastructure and get pipes replaced in a proactive measure rather than reactive emergency repairs that unfortunately happen. We found that the number one problem pipe is a corrugated metal pipe, something that needs to be addressed sooner rather than later, because Florida weather and Florida water is not kind to metal pipes. And so those are the gray bars in the first 5 columns, and then the blue would be the lower tier 2 budget projects, and then the yellow is the higher CIP level pipe replacements. And so that's what we intend to do.
So this,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just a few more. I have a couple comparison slides, and this is just an excerpt from the 2024 budget, again, showing in 2024 with our estimates, including expenditures and the increase of 20%, the revenues are still shy. We do have programmed in right now in the CIP document those additional future increases to get up to that $20 per ERU range, which we just spoke about last year. But again, we're looking at it 1 year at a time. And this is our stormwater rate history. I believe it was in '89 that we established the stormwater rate. And then, as you can tell, we've gone, several years where there weren't any increases. And again, coming up with this stormwater proactive plan has resulted in some of those heavy lift CIP projects coming to light. So this slide is just a comparison to other surrounding cities. I do have counties on the next slide. If it says fiscal year 2024 in the comments, that's where, next to the city, that's where we actually received some information for the 2024 rates. Otherwise, the rates listed are 2023. Again, something we considered back in 2016, 2017, we had a rate study done. As I mentioned, there were about 400 homes that were looked at, and what was the median range to consider doing a tiered charge for the city of Largo. And what we found is that we didn't have the diversity in the residential to do a tiered cost. So this is Largo compared to surrounding cities with the bolded second line is our proposed 2024 rate. And this is the counties that we could get some information on as well for 2023 or 4. So again, we've sent this notice out as well. This is available on largo.com under the Financial Center in the utilities to go through and find the exact impact. We've shared it on social media, and this is also scheduled for a second public hearing on August 15th. Staff is available for any questions.
Ordinance number 2023-50, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending Chapter 23, Article 3 of the City of Largo Code of Ordinances by amending Section 23-155 to increase the rate charge per ERU for calculating stormwater utility fees, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Matthew Faustini.
Good evening again. I was torn on this. 20% is a big number. And when looking through everything and thinking through everything and trying to look at the big picture, I came to a point where I support it, but for broader context and reasons. And mainly, the main kind of factor for me when I was thinking through this before this commission meeting was what happened last week at a Pinellas County Commission meeting, and the situation between the Army Corps of Engineers and the county with beach renourishment, and the struggle they are having in getting that funding. And it made me realize that federal government might not always be there. Things can change, wording can change, their view of easement can change, and climate change is going to bring these impacts on us. We are at a point where we are at a mitigation phase. Haven't passed the point of no return, but we are at a point where we have to start really thinking mitigation. And for all of that reasons, reluctantly, I came to support this. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? I had a question about, and I know that we reviewed this when we looked at that whole potential tier thing in stormwater fees. How does this increase affect an apartment unit?
So the apartment units are billed as commercial properties. So they're billed based on the number of ERUs that the space is taking up. So again, it's a 20% increase on all of the rates.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Holmes.
Can Inliner do corrugated pipe or not?
Yes, sir.
They can do it. Just, if you had this information at hand, and don't go digging for it if you don't, how many lineal feet of pipe does the city have that needs to be fixed? Whether in total or just linear feet? You don't go digging for it if we don't have it. I mean, I know Jerry will have it off the top of his head, but, you know, we'll have to wait for that day. But I would really like to know, because there's a lot of this stuff. I mean, I know how Inliner works, and that's a pretty cool system, and it's a lot cheaper than digging them up. But you know, to figure out, you know, where will it work and where won't it work, and, you know, what's the actual dollar cost for the lineal footage. But I mean, that's going to change every year anyway. But I would really like to know that. You know, what are the other options other than Inliner and digging it up? Is there a third choice? That's not a multiple choice question. You can think about it.
So, the answer is, the information is there, it's not on hand, but we can find it in short order. And
yeah, when we come around to this thing, I would really like to see that, because, you know, if you know the full scope, this is what you have to have done. You know, we danced and pranced on this with the roads not too long ago, and they produced a really nice spreadsheet about, you know, here's the roads and this is what needs to be done and stuff like that. If you're going to go into this thing and the people know this is what's got to get done. And then you also have the added issue here is, where do we come in with the county? Because, you know, we could get all our stuff working perfectly, but if the county isn't working perfectly, that creates a whole nother problem. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Along those lines, I know the FDOT has stormwater pipes along Seminole, Missouri Boulevard, correct? Do those tie into our system, or do they go to their own place?
Yes and yes.
Perfect.
The stormwater across the city follows contours of land. A lot of FDOT ponds that you see, the fenced off retention ponds that are full of cattails and weeds that are 10 miles high, are largely FDOT ponds. Right. So they retain an inch or two of rain in a day, so they can hold it back temporarily. But once we have a Florida summer with a lot of rain, it will be entering into our systems downstream.
So the reason I ask, if you come south on Seminole Boulevard, or Missouri, it's like a roller coaster ride. At every stormwater inlet, there's a pretty big dip. And I assume that that's corrugated metal pipe underneath the road there that's given way, and dirt is slowly seeping into that stormwater pipe, and then eventually getting into our stormwater system. Is that a true synopsis? Potentially?
Very possible. Okay. Yes. That's a generally speaking, if I see a dip in the road, we have multiple utilities across the county, whether it be water pipe that's under pressure, or stormwater pipe, or a sanitary sewer pipe. Any damage to any of those pipes could cause a dip like that, but corrugated metal pipe is a common cause for that.
And I know that I assume that the state knows about the pipes in need of repair along Seminole Boulevard. There's literally holes in the road where they've put black or blacktop on top of what's going away down the stormwater system. Do we know of any plans to address some of that?
We don't know of a larger plan. The city's process is to notify FDOT's contractor who services Seminole. It's a private contractor based on Alberton for legal services. They maintain a lot of those things until FDOT their own CIP division will probably take on larger issues.
All right, we'll talk more about that. Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. This concerns a wastewater pipe, I believe, but Ballester Road is closed now for road repair, and a wastewater pipe is being replaced in there. Did the pipe fail, or did the road fail, and we're just taking that opportunity to replace the pipe?
Unfortunately, I am not involved in that project, and
Oh, but here comes Shelley.
we have a resident expert.
Yeah.
Yes, that is definitely separate from stormwater, so I can take over quick. That is a manhole that has failed. So as far as I know, the bottom, all the way deep, 25 feet deep, we have a failure of the concrete manhole there. So we'll have to replace the manhole itself. So different pipe scenario than the corrugated that we're talking about with stormwater.
Yeah, thank God, yeah. So, well, not thank
But
God,
yeah,
we're
it's
replacing
not great either.
Right. So how long is that going to take? 'Cause it shouldn't take that long, from what I understand, to replace it.
So that one is a pretty serious repair. So we don't have an easy bypass on that one. I don't want to speak too much to it, but easy is not, 25 feet deep is generally not easy. It's a lengthy repair with bypass needed. Yeah.
So it was a manhole failure, and then the road followed, and so we have to fix all that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I move to approve ordinance number 2023-50 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on August 15, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Mr. Zimmett, anything this evening?
I have nothing tonight.
Commissioner Gerard.
Thank you. First of all, I do want to extend sincere kudos to all the staff who did work on the Housing for All gathering yesterday. It was really impressive. The commission chambers were filled with people who are interested in Housing for All. Great discussions on fixing the missing middle, and staff did an outstanding job. Everybody who was involved. I can start naming names, but there's so many people who worked on that. That was terrific, just terrific. So thank you, and thank you to all the citizens who came out. It really helps us in our decision-making. I brought this up before, but I saw an incident just yesterday that reminded me that the Pinellas Trail crossing at 8th Avenue Southwest, and I've mentioned this before, is a dangerous crossing. And as I was heading down 8th Avenue towards City Hall yesterday, I saw not one, but two bikes just dart right across the street right in front of a car. And, if it had been a second or two difference, there would have been a fatality. I understand that we've asked the county to look into that, and they said there's no issues. And then I've heard from other people that there have been accidents there. And I would really like us to request the county to take a look at that again. I know that a fix for that would not be easy because of where it's at, but somebody's going to die there, and we really ought to take a look at it. Other than that, I want to thank everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robbins.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Gerard was reading my notes over here. I wanted to also speak real quick about the Housing for All initiative or summit that we attended. Several of us attended last night. It was really great to see a lot stakeholders as well as community members involved in those conversations. There was a lot of great conversation, a lot of very good presentation as well as a lot of good presentations, or conversations, if I could speak correctly. It was, I could tell, and several people, I think, came in with the idea of, affordable housing and that negative connotation that kind of goes with that for some people. And I think literally there was minds changed last night during those conversations. So that's fantastic. It was really great to see a lot of the different missing middle housing options that are out there, and just all around a great presentation. And I wanted to say thank you to the staff and the consultants that worked on that. Everybody that walked out of here, and as to Commissioner Gerard's point, this room was full. Everybody, I think, that walked out of here took a lot away from that last night. And then I also wanted to say, for the Pinellas Trail at Mellenbacher is a similar situation. I especially right now, because they're building the sidewalk on the north side of Mellenbacher, and it's down to one lane, and there's, when it comes across the trail, that is, in that section, the northern section there of the Pinellas Trail, it's one of the only crossings that I'm aware of that doesn't have a stoplight or a stop sign. And it can be dangerous for pedestrians, for bicyclists, as well as people driving cars. So I think there's probably multiple jurisdictions at that crossing as well, but I know we have talked about both of those crossings in the past, and maybe if we can just get a little bit of an update to who those jurisdictions belong to, and if there's anything that we can do at either of them from the city's perspective to try to make those safer. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
I'd just like to say thank you to Rebecca, Merity, and Will, and your teams for just doing a great job in the presentation of the millage rate discussion, as well as the stormwater and wastewater rate increases. It just makes it a lot easier to evaluate, from our seats. We don't look at these things every day, and you really do make it simple to understand and to compare other communities. So thank you for your efforts on that. I know it takes a lot of extra work to present that way, but we do appreciate it. Thank you. And the Housing for All thing was amazing, so thank you. Great job, team, on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Just a request from Mike that he came up and talked about the boat. I'd like us to not only include him on the future date, but also could we provide him with the date of the past commission meeting so he can evaluate that online, what we discussed in full detail, so he is prepared knowing what we're talking about. And that's all my only request. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes.
I have a story to share with you. This is a true event that happened a week and a half ago. I was riding my bicycle, that's not news, coming down Rosary Road. I was approaching Missouri Avenue, and there's a PSTA bus stop right next to that gas station that's being rejuvenated, I guess. And there was a bunch of people running around outside, and you'd swear there was a religious revival meeting going on or something. And I said, what in the world is that? So I zipped over on the bicycle, and I looked, and here's a lady laying on the ground, and the guy's giving her chest compressions. And I said, oh my God. So I asked the guy, I said, do you need, you want a relief or something? He says, no, I got it right now. And he says, don't go away. And I said, well, no, if you need some relief, just let me know. And about that time, I heard the fire truck engine, or the siren going, which, that's always one of these thank you Jesus minutes when you hear one of them coming at you. And lo and behold, here comes Station 43 heading north on Missouri Avenue, which was a real head scratcher. But to watch these fellas get out of that truck, there's nobody up on this dais who has not seen the fire department personnel in action. We've seen them cutting up cars and running into burning buildings and everything like that. I have never seen what I saw that time. The three of them got out of that truck, and it was like poetry in motion. It was just perpetual. They each grabbed one of those suitcases, and they're down there, and they're just going to town on it. This lady was dead. She had, she OD'd, and they're going at it. They've got her wired up, and they got that equipment going, and they're calling in and the whole bit. I mean, it was a marvel to watch that. And I thought to myself, you know, I talked to Chief Pittman the next day, and I said, let me ask you a question. I said, do you train where any one of those three could have done what the other two were doing and vice versa? And he says, yeah, that's how they train. That it's everything. If they grab a bag, a satchel, for the aid for a person, any one of them could do the thing. And I said, I'll tell you what, that was a marvel to watch. That, I mean, the rest of it I have seen it many times over, but I had never seen that one. And I mean, by the way, she needed a lot of, what do they call it, Narvast?
Naloxone.
Narcan. Anyway, they were just pumping her up with it because they were giving it to her through the nose, and then they were doing it, you know, an IV on her. But I tell you what, I watched those three guys go to town, and it was poetry. It was just perpetual motion, though. And how they got her, they actually revived her. Sunstar finally showed up, you know, and off to the hospital she went. But I tell you what, I take my hat off to them. That was really something to see. Thank you, that's enough.
Thank you. The interesting thing is that all those bags in the county are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So there could be a Clearwater firefighter that's one of those three, and they're going to work exactly the same.
Well, there's a funny thing about that. Clearwater EMS actually showed up. One of our guys looked at him, he says, you got a backboard in there? And the guy says, I think we do.
Well, we have a good system, a good EMS system here in the, it's, I think I saw the numbers yesterday. We run, out of municipal systems in the country, we're the 7th largest, Pinellas County is, behind like Phoenix.
Really?
Yeah, 7th largest number of calls. So I had a couple things. First, I wanted to thank all the staff that worked on the Housing for All Summit. It was, as was already said, everybody did a great job. I actually was texting people like, this is really well done during the meeting. Because I didn't know what to expect, to tell you the truth. I wanted to ask about Mr. Peltier's questions about the boats and that stuff. And my comment to that would be that although we are working on looking at allowing boats, we currently don't. So I'm curious why. I know there's been some changes in the perception of what the ordinance says or the way that we're enforcing it. But I don't know if the attorney would say that we've put some intent out there that we may change that ordinance, but we haven't changed the ordinance. So I think that we need to take some action on these things when there's folks that aren't obeying our current ordinance. And that brings us to Mr. Riggs, who kind of had the same issue. And I think that from what Mr. Riggs said, he probably contacted Mr. Schubert, who isn't calling anybody right now because he retired. So if we could please reach out to Mr. Riggs and try to get a little bit in front of that situation and to help him out. I was going to mention if Mr. Murtha was here, we have a tree fund. I know that there's about, gosh, I think there's about $500,000 in that tree fund that can only be spent on planting trees. So where we can plant trees, I agree with them. Let's plant some trees. We've got a lot of money to do that. And that's all I had. Ms. Powell.
Just one thing this evening, I heard from Doug Thomas, our recruiter for the city manager search. He's been in contact with the 4 candidates that you've invited in for in-person interviews. All of them have accepted the invite, and they're looking forward to the meetings in August. So I'll keep you posted in the next few weeks, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that all of them are able to attend.
That's exciting. Thank you. Ms. Brenner, do we have any action items?
Yes, I have 6 things. A request by Commissioner Smith that staff look at a tiered wastewater rates for future increases. A request by Commissioner Holmes that staff provide the number of linear feet of pipe in the city that need to be fixed. A request by Commissioner Gerard that staff contact Pinellas County regarding addressing a dangerous Pinellas Trail crossing on 8th Avenue. A request by Commissioner Robinson that staff determine the jurisdiction of the Pinellas Trail crossing at Mellenbacher Road. A request by Commissioner Smith that staff contact Mr. Peltier regarding the previous work session and upcoming work session discussion when boat and camper parking will be discussed. and a request by Mayor Brown that staff reach out to Mr. Riggs to address his situation.
I would just add on to the boat. When we were at the work session, that was kind of what I was talking about, the one that sits out on the road who gets around things. So that's in my neighborhood, unfortunately, and the individual has been multiple times contacted by PD and code and somehow doesn't do anything, and just moves it around and gives stories. So that's kind of where that is, unfortunately.
Oh, and she lived.
That's good. That's good to hear. Good. We'll end on good news. Means adjourned.